Dr. Max Abrahams, Associate Professor of Public Policy and Political Science, Northeastern University. Dr. Abrahams, thank you so much. Let's first begin with the theme of what really brings us together here, which is Rising Bharat. How do you see Bharat placed today as far as geopolitical situation emerging almost on a daily basis is concerned, the economic turmoil that we're seeing slowly shape up, escalate by the day? Where do you see Bharat placed? How do you see our country placed?
I see it very well placed. In the course of this trip, I learned that India may even host a future Olympics. And I see that
That's the plan.
I see that as a very fitting tribute to India's position in the world. And I hope to have an interview with you then as well. But it's no secret that India has been on the rise in terms of its current economic size and the anticipated economic size. I think it's already something like the number 5 biggest economic powerhouse. Right. It's expected to rise to the number 3 spot by 2028, and this is driven by the largest population in the world, also a very smart and dynamic population. And so on questions of industries and sectors which are seen as really critical around the world in terms of driving future economies, like AI, for example, India is a powerhouse. And so I know that some people might be worried with Donald Trump's announcements about the tariffs, but it is in no way a reflection of Washington's views about the importance of the U.S.-India relationship. And I think that Modi and Trump will work out any differences and maybe put these two countries in an even better position than they were a couple weeks ago.
Dr. Abrahams, how do you view their relationship? If we talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump, it's one that clearly symbolic of a deep friendship that the two gentlemen enjoy. At the same time, we have the President of the United States, throw up those surprises. He refers to Narendra Modi as a friend. And in the same breath, he talks about the harsh tariffs that India has imposed on the United States. So we've seen him, unrelenting in calling out what he wants to call out more often than not. Does that in any way undermine the manner in which he's possibly just speaking of the Prime Minister as the Prime Minister of the country and not as his friend Narendra Modi? Or how do you see it playing out overall?
I can certainly understand why countries around the world, including India, would almost internalize and take personally the level of tariffs that Trump has basically imposed on other countries. But they are not driven by the warmth of Washington towards those countries. They're based on a formula. And that formula, I believe, has been applied relatively consistently across all countries around the world. So the fact that there are these sudden, elevated, even surprising tariffs against India, that is not an indication of any kind of diminished regard that Trump has for Modi. And I actually think that these two leaders are going to work out some kind of a side private arrangement which serves both of these countries.
Okay, while Donald Trump, Dr. Abrahams, has been very clear, he's really not held back his words. He has poured his heart out in any media interaction. The Indian authorities have weighed in on each and every aspect. They're very carefully giving reactions to the media as well. And they're saying we're going to wait and watch, that we're not disappointed as yet. We're keeping our hopes up and we're watching out for all the diplomatic conversations that are ongoing, even with regards to the BTA. Are you hopeful of Donald Trump going easy on India in the coming months? Do you see all of those signals being sent out from the United States, or perhaps not?
I do. I think that that Washington absolutely cherishes its relationship with India and views India as absolutely critical in many dimensions. Obviously, India is the largest democracy in the world, and that's important to Washington. Economically, India is indispensable in terms of its market and population and innovations taking place here. But also, the number one sort of medium-term and long-term geopolitical strategic threat from the vantage of Washington is the rise of China.
Right.
And the United States has really prioritized developing strategic military defense relations with India in large part to contain China. There's also this
And do you
important...
think that's going to be taken into consideration
There's
when
no
it comes to tariffs as well? That India has been a great friend. It's an important partner, especially in attempting to counter China, a neighbor to India.
You might think that the tariffs are based, that the tariff levels around the world are based on sort of Washington's regard for different countries. But honestly, that's not the case. India is not the only country sort of confused by this. An example would be Turkey, which is seen, although it's a NATO country, there are concerns about Turkey in terms of its support for terrorism, its moves into Syria, etc., its flirtations with Russia, and its tariffs were raised 10%, whereas Israel's tariffs, which has a much stronger relationship with Washington, their tariffs rose 17%, right? So obviously the tariff levels are not based on sort of the warmth that Washington has towards
I'm only trying to
towards
dig
these
deep.
countries.
I'm only trying to dig deep into this because there's a lot of criticism here as well. If we
Yes.
talk about the political rivals of the current dispensation, there are those who are trying to press in on the issue. They're saying, what are the Indian authorities, the government really doing about this issue? Hence, I ask all of these questions.
No, I myself knew that there would be tariffs. What surprised me was that they would come out all at once, the announcements, that they would be so high, and that they didn't really reflect the priority that Washington places on good relations with those countries. I mean, another sort of interesting example that stood out to me was how high the tariffs are on Taiwan. Right. Because you might think that those would be quite low because of the importance that the U.S. attaches to Taiwan in terms of containing, Chinese expansion, as well as the fact that Taiwan has, over the past month, made all sorts of concessions to Washington. So I think a lot of countries are asking similar questions as you right now.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's why we're having this conversation to begin with. But I do want to move on to, before I let you go, to what do you make of Narendra Modi as a global leader? We talk about dealing with different trade partners, talk about India's stake during a crisis that we've seen in the Ukraine, that we've seen in the Middle East. There's so much unfolding geopolitically speaking as well. And let's not forget our neighbors, the challenges that have been thrown in by them, be it China at the LAC or a neighboring Pakistan. How have you seen his leadership the last 10 years, the last decade?
I think he's unlike any other leader around the world. I've seen international survey data. I'm a political scientist. Yes. I look at the data sometimes, and Modi is unusually popular, and it's not restricted to within India. It's around the world. What I think he's very good at, in particular, is finding things in common with other countries. And not unnecessarily creating enemies by being too dogmatic ideologically. And I say this as an American who has seen the United States at times do this. I think that Modi looks for relationships with countries based on, shared interests and values. And that, I think, has served India very well.
Also makes it so very personal, isn't it? Every visit he makes to any other nation, the manner in which there's an exchange of gifts happening, there's so much going on, really, and so much that he
Yeah,
perhaps
I mean, there's
brings
a
to the
big, beyond sort of his approach, just kind of his nature. I think that he's seen as very likable, even for those who are just casual India watchers.
Okay, before we wrap up, what's the next big thing you see for India going forward as a global leader, or as a country that's aiming the sky, aiming for the sky?
Well, one issue, which is just that India's population is so massive.
Right.
And it is not just massive within India, but the India sort of diaspora is also quite massive and also extraordinarily successful. I'm a professor at Northeastern University. We have the second most international students of any university in the U.S., and the country that produces the most foreign students is India. And actually, my best student is Indian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I will be interested in seeing how India manages not only its own population, but its relations with its very expansive and important and successful diaspora community.
Very interesting. And he's always tried to at least give that impression that he's had this strong relationship with those who are associated with this country in any form. But thank you so much, Dr. Abrams, for speaking with us. Have a wonderful stay here in India.
Thank you.